It was 8:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning when Margaret Clearwater went down like a sack of flour, face first into a petunia planter, still clutching a 36-inch aluminum ruler like it was some kind of sword of justice. Her cries of illegal extension echoed across the entire neighborhood as I, David Patterson, calmly sipped my coffee from a world's okayest neighbor mug and watched the security cam replay in slow motion for the third time that morning. The whole scene was so perfectly ridiculous that I couldn't help but laugh. There was Margaret, dressed in her usual HOA enforcement outfit of khaki pants and a polo shirt embroidered with Community Standards Coordinator, sprawled across my flower bed with dirt in her hair and petunias stuck to her glasses. The caption I later added before uploading the video to social media: HOA Karen gets decked by her own tape measure. I'm David Patterson, 51. A recently divorced high school science teacher turned hammock connoisseur who moved into Maplewood Heights for its peaceful walking trails and supposedly low-involvement HOA. After 23 years of marriage that ended when my ex-wife decided she needed to find herself in Costa Rica with her yoga instructor, I deserved some peace and quiet. I spent a peaceful summer extending my backyard deck by exactly 18 inches, just enough space for a gas grill and a comfortable swinging bench where I could grade papers and watch the sunset with a cold beer. I measured everything twice, checked the city codes 3 times, and even called the planning department to confirm I was within all setback requirements. Everything was perfectly legal and properly done. But Margaret Clearwater had other ideas. Margaret was the HOA secretary, a retired high school drama coach, and a part-time tape measure vigilante who treated neighborhood code enforcement like it was her personal mission from above. She was the kind of woman who color-coded her spice rack alphabetically, kept her measuring tools in a custom-built pegboard system, and considered enforcing HOA rules a sacred calling that required military-level precision. Margaret saw my new deck from her kitchen window and immediately clutched her pearls and clipboard like I'd just committed some kind of architectural war crime. She hand-delivered a violation letter that read, in dramatic flourish, unauthorized deck enlargement, visual nuisance and spatial disruption. The letter was typed in 14-point font with bold headings and included a hand-drawn diagram of what she perceived as my illegal extension. I met her at my front door the next morning, coffee in hand, and explained as calmly as possible that the extension was minor and completely within setback limits. Margaret disagreed with an indignant huff, claiming she had eyeballed the zoning lines for years, and could tell my joists were criminally extended just by looking at them. Her voice carried that theatrical projection she'd perfected during her 30-year career directing high school musicals. Margaret, I measured everything according to city code, I said, trying to keep my voice level and professional. I even have the permits and inspection reports if you'd like to see them. She narrowed her eyes dramatically and declared, with the flair of someone announcing the final act of a Shakespearean tragedy, "We'll see about that, David Patterson. We'll just see about that." When I didn't immediately tear down my perfectly legal deck in response to her demands for architectural drawings, engineering reports, and a sworn affidavit about my construction methods, Margaret began her campaign of systematic harassment. She started by peering over my fence with binoculars that she'd specially labeled HOA Property Monitor, in permanent marker. Every morning at exactly 7:30, she would position herself in her backyard with a lawn chair, clipboard, and those binoculars, watching my deck like she was conducting surveillance on a criminal enterprise. She'd take notes, sketch diagrams, and occasionally mutter things like, "definitely non-compliant," and, "structural irregularities detected." Anonymous notes started appearing on my doorstep with increasing frequency: "Deck too big, David. Shame on you. Neighborhood integrity compromised. Remove illegal extension immediately." Each note was written in the same purple ink she used for her HOA correspondence, so the anonymity was purely theoretical. Then came the phone calls at 7 a.m. sharp every single morning. "This is Margaret Clearwater from the HOA Compliance Department," she would announce with practiced authority, as if she was calling from some official government agency instead of her kitchen. "Your deck situation requires immediate attention and resolution." She organized a deck regulation committee, consisting entirely of Margaret, complete with official letterhead and a rubber stamp. My neighbors Tom and Sarah from next door whispered warnings about her measuring tape expeditions. "She's been walking the property lines with a clipboard," Tom confided. "Yesterday, she measured my mailbox post 3 times." The harassment escalated when Margaret began hosting deck awareness meetings in her living room, where she'd project photos of my extension onto her wall and point out what she called dimensional violations. Only 3 people ever attended these meetings, but that didn't stop Margaret from creating a comprehensive PowerPoint presentation titled The Patterson Deck Crisis, a Community Under Siege. She'd prepared handouts, charts showing acceptable versus unacceptable deck dimensions, and even a timeline of what she called the escalating violation. The whole situation was becoming increasingly ridiculous, but I figured eventually Margaret would get bored and move on to harassing someone else about their lawn height or mailbox color. I was wrong. Margaret was just getting started, and she was about to take her enforcement efforts to a whole new level of crazy. Then came the incident I'll never forget as long as I live. I came home from school one Tuesday afternoon around 4:30 to find my gate unlatched and fresh footprints tracked across my carefully maintained flower beds. My security camera system, which I'd installed after my divorce for general peace of mind, had captured everything in perfect high-definition detail. The footage was absolutely priceless. It showed Margaret entering my backyard through the unlatched gate, carrying what appeared to be a full arsenal of measuring equipment, her 36-inch aluminum ruler, a tape measure, a clipboard, and something that looked like a protractor. She approached my deck with the confidence and determination of a building inspector conducting a major structural evaluation. I reported the trespassing and provided footage. The HOA board was mortified. Turns out Margaret had also entered 2 other yards that month to measure perimeter violations, using a ruler, a yoga mat, and a label tape reading HOA lengths of justice. The insurance company got involved when Margaret filed a claim for her sprained ankle, claiming she'd been injured in the line of HOA duty. The insurance adjuster watched my security footage and promptly denied her claim. Margaret's ankle brace became the neighborhood's running joke. I received a formal apology from the board and a fruit basket from Linda Santos. Margaret was suspended from all HOA inspections pending review. The board quietly retracted my deck violation notice and sent a letter confirming my extension was compliant with all regulations. Word spread quickly through our tight-knit community. Neighbors, previously afraid of Margaret's measuring wrath, began confessing to their own illegal porch extensions and garden modifications. Mrs. Chan admitted her rose trellis was 3 inches over the property line. The Williams family revealed their dog run exceeded the approved dimensions. Everyone had been living in fear of Margaret's ruler. Someone created a meme page called Margaret and Order, Deck Unit. It gained 300 followers in a week, featuring photos of measuring tapes with captions like Weapon of Mass Destruction and Ruler of Terror. The community's response was swift and decisive. At the next HOA meeting, I gave a slideshow presentation titled Measured Response: The Ethics of Yard Trespassing. I included photos of the damaged flower beds, copies of the police report, and testimonials from other affected neighbors. The room was packed with homeowners who'd had enough of Margaret's measuring madness. I ended my presentation with a 5-second loop of Margaret's ruler-induced tumble, now set to dramatic violin music. The room erupted in laughter as Margaret's face turned bright red. She stood up abruptly and declared, "This is character assassination." But her protest fell on deaf ears. The board voted unanimously to ban unsolicited measuring of any kind on homeowner property. Margaret was immediately demoted from HOA secretary to newsletter proofreader, a role that came with 0 rulers and 1 mandated written apology to me and the other affected homeowners. She was also required to attend a conflict resolution seminar and pay for the damaged flowers in my garden. But the real consequences came when the affected homeowners decided to take legal action. 3 families, including myself, filed a civil lawsuit against Margaret for trespassing, property damage, and harassment. The case went to court 2 months later with Judge Patricia Reynolds presiding. Margaret arrived wearing her best courtroom outfit, still convinced she'd been acting within her HOA authority. Her lawyer tried to argue that she'd been performing necessary community oversight, but the security footage and police reports painted a different picture. The judge watched the video of Margaret's tumble twice, clearly fighting back laughter. Judge Reynolds delivered her verdict with stern authority. "Mrs. Clearwater, your actions constitute clear trespassing and harassment of your neighbors. The evidence shows a pattern of unauthorized entry onto private property under the guise of HOA enforcement." Margaret's face grew pale as the judge continued, "You are hereby ordered to pay damages totaling $15,000 to the affected homeowners for trespassing, property damage, and emotional distress." Margaret stood frozen in the courtroom, her mouth agape, as the reality of the judgment sank in. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "This is unbelievable.